Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be talking about some mountain bike stuff in this series I call Trailed It. I'm going to talk about some gear, I'm going to talk about techniques, hopefully give you guys some tips on how to handle your bicycle, maybe on what gear to pick, etc., etc. This particular video is going to be relatively basic. I've been sick for like 3 days, so I didn't have a lot of energy, but it was really nice to get that zen back, to get out on my bike, get out into the air, and just get out of the house. Just get out of the house. I don't ride this fast. This is at like 400%. This is how I feel like an 80s show, right, when they do super speed. This is better, more my style. One of the things we're going to talk about is how to get up and over obstacles and how to deal with obstacles, just terrain features. Those terrain features could be, hills, could be rocks, could be tree roots, could be any number of things. You'll see as I enter this trail that one of the issues we're running into is that time of year. This is one of the hardest times of year to ride. It gets cold, but also there's all kinds of stuff all over the trails. You see all kinds of leaves and pine needles and whatnot, and the ground is wet. And the problem is, not only do you have tree roots and obstacles to deal with, but they're hard to judge where they are, where they actually lie, because they're covered in leaves and crap. So tough. The other issue you're going to run into is the tree roots, being soft, wet wood right now, are not only slippery, but they have more give than normal, so it's hard to predict how they're going to react when your tires hit them. And you want to try to maintain traction at all times, because that's how you don't fall down. A couple months ago, we had a bad windstorm, and you'll see right here as I'm coming up, it's knocked a tree down. Big shout out to Nemba and a bunch of the local mountain bike community peeps. They've been doing a real good job out there with chainsaws and stuff, just trying to put the trails back together. Big shout out to All Speed Bikes and Cyclemania. As I hit this next trail, I'm in Evergreen Cemetery. I'm going to set up before I hit the actual difficult things to deal with. I'm running a dropper post, so my seat post will go up and down with the press of a button. I can have it up for full extension of my leg to get full power in my pedal stroke, or I can drop the seat all the way down to the top, to the seat tube, getting that seat out of the way so I can maneuver a little easier, shift my weight in one direction, the bike in the other direction, things of that nature. This is regular speed. It's interesting, I watch a lot of these videos, and I always wonder how fast they're actually going. Because it looks like I'm going pretty fast. I'm actually a little chilled on the tempo in this whole ride. I didn't have a lot of energy, as I said, so I'm just trying to get out there and get the heart pumping, get the muscles going. As I come up into this next little section, I bring the seat back up, get my pedal stroke on, try to get some tempo going. One of the things you want to do is you always want to maintain your cadence if you can. Not only will that help you keep your endurance, but it'll also help you keep traction. As you come up on some of these little climbs, if you're pedaling at an even pace and then shift gears to maintain that pace, you're less likely to run out of traction. You're less likely to have too much power and get your wheel to slip. Never want your wheel to slip, right? Because if your wheel slips, you don't go anywhere. Physics. That thing I passed on the left just now was a tree. Wind did that. Tree fell over. The friggin' base of the tree is taller than I am. It's crazy. We're coming up on a little bit of a semi-tricky section. Tree roots and rocks and such. You'll see the video will slow down as I start to deal with them. The issue you're running into here is the ground goes up and down a bunch, and the tree roots are sort of sprinkled about each, in clumps. You'll have a large section with a bunch of tree roots and then nothing, and then it'll start to come up. The terrain will climb again, and then you'll have tree roots and rocks and whatnot. I'm running a full suspension bike. It's a Rocky Mountain Thunderbolt. It's one of the alloy ones. It's a trail bike. It's 120 millimeter to travel front and back. The suspension does a pretty good job of soaking up most of the little stuff, but I tend to not be that guy that just kind of barrels over all of the terrain. I spent a lot of time on a 20-inch bike, on a freestyle bike or a race bike, and so I'm used to that sort of trialsy mentality where you put the wheel where you want it, picking up the front wheel and placing it, and picking up the back wheel and placing it, etc., etc. One of the issues you run into with that is, in this particular ride, I'm trying to keep the wheels on the ground, because as you're picking up the wheels, you're adding more variables to something that you really don't have a whole lot of control on sometimes. You want to try to stay away from lateral pressure that'll make you slip left or right. This next section is super tricky. I've fallen here a couple of times just because the tree roots are spaced in a way that your a 27.5 outside diameter wheel will get caught up in some of these branches, in some of these roots. I found out I can totally do a plank at high speeds with my bike on my back. Section coming up here, more tree roots, but it curves around this little body of water, so you run out of the right shoulder. So you got to be careful to try to stay on the trail, deal with the tree roots, and not slip too far to the right, because you'll end up in the drink. Tree root, tree root, tree root, tree root, tree root, tree root. I do this little drop off here. It's a little 12-inch drop or something, nothing big. Try to get over it so I can pop the wheel up onto this bridge at the last second. This section's relatively easy. Hi, doggy. But the climbs sneak up on you a little bit. You gotta kind of pay attention. So right now I'm on a pretty easy climb, and then it gets steep out of nowhere, and it drops out of nowhere too. Sometimes it's hard to see the trail just because there's so many leaves and brush all over the place. I don't know if brush is the right word. Leaves and pine cones and stuff. P.S. If you're enjoying the music that I put with this, it's Parov Stellar. It's a genre called electro swing. Be sure to check them out. I just passed an option to go right as opposed to this trail that I'm on the left. The right one is a steeper climb, and it's loose rocks, like probably softball-sized rocks. And with where everything's wet, I didn't want to chance that climb. Those guys slip out pretty easily. On the street, I dropped my seat so I can get a little air on this little guy, and boop. I like to tag that bush with my back tire. This trail's interesting, this one coming up. It connects Allen Ave and Canco Road, and it's relatively chill. But then when it's not chill, it's really not chill. Like just chunky rocks and more tree roots. A couple little, tiny climbs. And the bridges all have a little lip to them. Right here, I hit a rock, that rock on the left. I kind of miss it on the front wheel and let my back wheel hit it and then slide laterally down back into the line. You want to choose your line. You want to decide what you want to deal with. For example, I'm going to deal with that bridge as opposed to all the other stuff hiding under the leaves. Sometimes you want to choose a line that is easier for you and get you over more smoothly, but sometimes you want to choose a line that's just more interesting. You know, I really enjoy climbing up over big chunky rocks or whatever sometimes. There's a mean rock coming up here. So you climb up these roots, up and over, and then right here, Satan. Just kidding. Just a bunch of rocks. It's not Satan. Satan's not really there. It's just rocks. I finally picked up speed. I got sad watching the video. You know, on the GoPro, you can hear me breathing like a mofo. That rock that I'm climbing there is almost waist height. It looks a lot less intimidating from the GoPro view, but it's pretty substantial. You gotta pop your front wheel up onto it and then yank your back wheel up onto it after. It's not really bunny hoppable. You can't just jump up on it with all this muck and such flying around. You can see actually in this trail section where it gets muddy, and you gotta be careful because, you know, if you get mud on your tires, you're likely to lose traction on the next terrain feature. So I try to splash the water a little bit because the water will at least come off. But you get some thick mud in those knobs, you're gonna hit a rock and you're not going anywhere. It's just gonna slip. You have too much power. Speaking of power, I'm running a 2 double chainring in the front. I'm not running a single chainring. I put in the smaller one right before I hit this climb. This climb is pretty steep. It's probably, I don't know, 15 feet or something high. And these rocks and little tree branches are a little tricky because they don't go perfectly left to right. You know, they grow with nature. So they're going to go at angles. And if your wheel hits it just right, your wheel slides down the tree root to the left or right. And that can be a little tough to deal with. I actually ended up picking the wrong lines on a couple of them because of that exact thing. Up here, we talked about choosing a line. I really enjoy climbing this little rock feature. It's way less treacherous than it looks on this video. It looks like I'm up pretty high, but not too bad. You know, again, that's choosing your line. Do you want to deal with a cool feature, or do you want to go by it fast? Squirrel. You see the squirrel? Be aware too, this is right off Canco Road, and when you're on this trail, please remember there is no parking right there. No parking there on the trail at all. Thank you, officer, for enforcing that. I appreciate you. I jumped off the trail, and then I jumped back on that trail. This isn't within that same group of woods off Canco. This little section can be a mofo. Check out the rocks. I actually choose the wrong line. I go right. I need to go left on this next section of rocks after the bridge. So you got this thin bridge, and if you go straight, you can pop up onto that rock and go right over those guys. But I ended up having to power my way through that little valley, which gets tricky because it's about the same width as your tire. So if your sidewall of your tire gets caught up in those mofos, you're probably not gonna finish riding that little rock thing. Some tree roots. I know, weird, right? Thank you, Maine, for all the tree roots. This little bridge, a little warbly, you notice it leans right at the beginning and then left on the end. You gotta be careful of not slipping down that, buddy. I just called it my buddy because evidently we're friends. Bob my head thing. I actually don't wear my GoPro on my helmet because I listen to music when I ride and bob my head too much. It'll be all weird. Another little root section. So check out this thin-ass bridge up onto the rock, and the space between the bridge and the rock drops down, and if you're not careful, your tire could get caught up in that guy. Here's another rock feature that I like to jump up on. Right here. Ba-doop, ba-doop. Again, choosing your line just for fun. I think next run, though, I'm going to aim the GoPro a little more even. This one looks like it's aiming down a little too much for the vid. I wish you guys could see what's ahead of us a little more often. That's pretty much going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had fun. Maybe you giggled. Maybe you laughed. I don't know. Something. Be sure to subscribe. Check out my other videos. I'm going to send some more up your way quickly. And keep safe on the trails, y'all. Trailed it.